Bear down. Albert Breer from Sports Illustrated just confirmed it. The free agency door is still wide open at Halas Hall, and there are two names on the table that no Navy and Orange fan can afford to ignore. Cameron Jordan, Jadeveon Clowney, and nobody should downplay why this is urgent. Last year, the Bears finished with the second worst pass rush win rate in the entire NFL, second worst in a conference with the Eagles, the Rams, and the Lions. That is not a minor weakness. That is a structural crisis at the most critical moment of the Caleb Williams era. What makes Jordan especially dangerous in this context is something very few people are actually breaking down. Dennis Allen spent over a decade building his defense alongside Jordan in New Orleans. No learning curve, no adjustment period, pure plug and play inside Allen's scheme with the monsters of the Midway. And while that negotiation keeps cooking, there is another internal move on this roster that changes the entire landscape in Chicago, and nobody in the Windy City saw it coming. All of that right now. If you trust Ryan Poles and his process, drop a like and join the real Bear Nation. Look, I'm going to be completely real with you from the jump. The Chicago Bears edge rush situation keeps me up at night, and I'm not being dramatic. Last season, the Bears finished tied for the 7th fewest sacks in the entire NFL. 7th, and I don't mean 7th best. I mean 7th worst, and if that alone doesn't set off alarm bells, the pass rush win rate was the 2nd worst in the whole league, 2nd worst in a conference that has the Eagles, the Rams, and the Lions breathing down your neck. That is not a footnote. That is a structural crisis at the exact moment this team is supposed to be building toward a Super Bowl. So right now, what exactly do we have on that side of the ball? Dayo Odeyingbo is coming off a torn Achilles. Came back last year and managed just 1 sack in 8 games. Austin Booker had 4.5 sacks last season, a career high, and nobody actually knows if he can repeat that. And Shamar Turner is coming back from a torn ACL. That entire group is one giant question mark. Meanwhile, Montez Sweat is over there trying to carry the whole load by himself. So when Albert Breer at Sports Illustrated says publicly that signing an edge rusher in free agency is still very much on the table, and that Cameron Jordan and Jadeveon Clowney are names worth keeping on your radar, bro, that immediately gets my full attention. Let's start with Cam Jordan, 37 years old. For a lot of people, that's a red flag. But hold on, because the tape doesn't lie. Last season with the Saints, Jordan put up 10.5 sacks. You know how many sacks he would have needed to lead the Bears' entire edge rush group with that total? Exactly 10.5. Because nobody on this current roster came close to that. That right there tells you everything about where this unit stands right now. And here's what makes this genuinely make sense for Chicago beyond the raw numbers. Dennis Allen, the Bears' defensive coordinator, spent over a decade coaching Cameron Jordan in New Orleans. Jordan was the cornerstone of Allen's defense for years. He already knows the system. He already knows the demands. He already knows the vocabulary of that meeting room. There is no learning curve. There is no adjustment period. This is a plug-and-play situation inside the exact scheme Allen runs in Chicago. The only real issue? Money. Jordan hasn't signed anywhere yet, and that usually means he's waiting for a number he feels reflects his value. For a guy still producing 10.5 sacks in a season, that asking price is going to be significant. And Poles has to weigh that against everything he's already committed to this offseason. Now Jadeveon Clowney is the other option. 33 years old, 8.5 sacks last year in Dallas, and an attitude that I personally love, because this man literally said, and I'm quoting him directly, "Ain't no scheme I can't play in 3, 4-4-3, to whatever down scheme I've proven I can dominate in all of them." That is not empty confidence. That is a resume. Clowney has played in basically every major defensive system in modern professional football, and Breer specifically points out that Clowney fits the prototype Dennis Allen looks for in an edge player. Big, long, physical, and effective against the run. That last part matters a lot because the Bears gave up the 6th most rushing yards in the entire NFL last season, 6th worst against the run. 2nd worst in the pass rush. That is a pattern, and patterns don't fix themselves. Look, I get it. Poles might want to see what Odeyingbo can do when fully healthy. He might want to see if Booker takes a real second-year leap. That logic is understandable, but in a year when Caleb Williams and this Bears team are supposed to be legitimate Super Bowl contenders, is wait and see actually good enough? Because if that defensive front doesn't improve in a meaningful way, this offense could be the best in the NFL, and this team could still drop games they have no business losing. Cam Jordan is the perfect one-year stopgap. He knows the system. He still produces, and he brings veteran leadership into a room that desperately needs it. That stuff doesn't always show up on a stat sheet, but it matters. I would sign that deal today if I were Ryan Poles. Today. Take a breath, because this one needs to be processed carefully. After the draft, reports started circulating that Cole Kmet could be available in a trade, and I understand that sentence alone might trigger an immediate, visceral reaction from any real Bears fan, because Kmet is so much more than a player on a depth chart. He grew up in Arlington Heights as a Bears fan. He went to Notre Dame. He's been in Navy and Orange since he was drafted, and that touchdown he scored against the Rams in the playoff game back in January, that moment still gives me chills. This man is part of the soul of this team right now, but the NFL is a business. And the Bears just drafted Sam Roush in the 2026 draft, making them one of the very few teams in recent memory with 3 legitimate tight ends on the same active roster. Colston Loveland took a massive step forward as a rookie last season. Kmet is still a reliable blocker and a trusted receiver, and now Roush is here. Here's the tactical reality. Ben Johnson loves 2 tight end sets. He even uses 3 tight end sets, so in theory, there is room for all 3 of them, but here is the complication. Kmet is under contract through 2027. Any team that wants him has to absorb that contract. This is not a one-season rental. It's a real commitment for any potential trade partner. That makes the deal harder. But if the Bears get back something significant in return, like a top-tier pass rusher, then suddenly that trade closes a loop perfectly on the team's single biggest need. My honest opinion, the Bears are a better team with all 3 tight ends on the roster. Williams needs every reliable weapon he could get. Kmet is clutch. When the moment is biggest, we saw it live. But if Roush outperforms expectations and the pressure for an elite edge rusher becomes impossible to ignore, Kmet becomes the most movable asset on this roster. And this connects perfectly to something that came out right after the draft. According to ESPN's Jeremy Fowler, the Bears were, quote, high on Tennessee cornerback Colton Hood and seriously explored trading up to get him in the second round, but the price was too steep. Hood ended up going at pick 37 to the Giants. Had the Bears pulled that off, they would have landed a cornerback capable of starting from day one, competing directly with Tyreek Stevenson for the number 2 outside corner spot opposite Jaylon Johnson. Instead, the Bears kept their spot at 25 and took Oregon safety Dylan Thieneman. Then on day 3, they traded up to pick 124 and selected Texas cornerback Malik Muhammad, a player most draft boards had projected as a day 2 pick. Muhammad is a well-rounded corner with strong field vision and sharp instincts. Less dominant in press man coverage than Hood, but genuinely versatile in whatever coverage Dennis Allen calls. If Muhammad reaches his ceiling, that was a flat-out steal in the 4th round. What this entire draft chapter tells us about Poles is simple. He always has a contingency. He moves when the price is right, and when it isn't, he finds a different path to value. That consistency is exactly what gives me confidence in this front office. This one I love because it validates something Bears fans needed to hear after years of offensive line turbulence. Logan Jones, the center out of Iowa, selected by Chicago at pick 57 in the 2nd round, was so coveted that Ravens general manager Eric DeCosta came out publicly and admitted he was prepared to trade up in the 3rd round to grab him if he fell that far. And internally, DeCosta gave Jones a first-round grade. A first-round grade, that is not an average center. That is a player opposing front offices are actively trying to block the Bears from having. And the context here makes it even richer. The Ravens lost Tyler Linderbaum, who signed with Las Vegas in free agency, and were desperate for a replacement. Linderbaum was considered one of the best centers in the NFL. DeCosta said Jones could have been a week 1 starter for Baltimore. That tells you exactly what kind of player Poles landed with the 57th pick. Jones himself said the Bears organization reminded him of Iowa in terms of culture and people, and that he always hoped this was the call he would get on draft day. That kind of cultural alignment matters. It matters a lot more than most people give it credit for. Now to round out the picture from the final rounds of the draft. At pick 213, the Bears gave up both of their 7th-round selections to move up and take defensive tackle Jordan Vandenberg out of Georgia Tech. He was the only defensive lineman Chicago selected in the entire draft. Vandenberg is a pure athlete with high character marks, and the team's national scout said the coaching staff had been pounding the table for him for the last 2 weeks of the process, a DNA match. They called it. That's the kind of language that tells you this pick was not a random name off a board. This was a targeted bet on upside. And one more name that deserves a mention in all of this. Caden Barnett, the offensive tackle out of Wyoming who signed as an undrafted free agent, 6'4", 316, logged double-digit starts at both guard and tackle in college, and Bleacher Report already has him as the Bears' UDFA with the best shot at making the 53-man roster. With Ozzie Trapilo dealing with an injury that cost him most of the 2026 season and the left tackle competition wide open, Barnett might genuinely surprise some people in training camp. This Bears draft class, fam, is deeper than the highlight reel makes it look. Bears Nation, hear me out. This team is building something real. Caleb Williams has weapons. The offensive line is getting better brick by brick. The defense has young talent starting to emerge. And if Poles goes out and secures Cameron Jordan or Jadavion Clowney to anchor that pass rush, this roster becomes something very, very serious in the NFC. The 2026 season is coming fast, and honestly, I cannot wait. If this breakdown got you fired up like it did me, drop a like right now and tell me in the comments, would you sign Cam Jordan? Or do you trust Poles to ride with Odie Bo and Booker and see what happens? Because that debate is starting right here, right now. Bear down, Chicago.